So, over the last few years since COVID, um, I'm sure we've all noticed prices have been going up for bloody well everything. Now, the cost of living crisis is sort of bandied around quite a bit, um, but I think this masks that it's not happening to all of us. It's not this is just happening to the economy and the population. It's some sort of outside force. This is a sort of, this is distributional. We're not going through a recession. It's just the purchasing power of our wages. So, say the 95% is being squeezed while corporate profits are soaring because they're hiking the price, they're making more profit, and they're running away with the difference. And what the market should be doing, what we're told the market does, is it doesn't allow companies to do this, because if one company just starts hiking prices too much and being greedy, we all just run across the road to a competitor. The problem with how our economy seems to be shifting and morphing over time is that in every single industry and market, we're getting less and less competition until we just have, a stable two, three, four, six Goliath firms that just own the market. They are the market. Okay. Um, so my question is, how are we going to ensure that the massive gains for the corporate class, for the super rich, for the investors, the big investors, how are we going to ensure the spoils from these massive price hikes are going to be shared across the system? Or are we just going to leave almost everyone poorer whilst corporate profits soar? That's just how the cookie crumbles. So my question for the political class and for us to be pushing and pressing our politicians is, what is the plan to tackle corporate power? What is the plan to tackle monopoly power so that they can inflate prices far above costs and suppress wages, making almost all of us poorer and pocketing the difference? And then over time, this adds up. Corporate profits continue to scale. These Goliath companies are worth billions, trillions now, and yet we're struggling with wages. Rents are skyrocketing. Food is skyrocketing. Energy is skyrocketing. And our politicians have nothing to say about this. Absolutely nothing to say. So my question is, isn't it time we start to tackle the root problems of this runaway economic system that functions to redistribute wealth from all of us right to the very top? The problem is this system is jamming anyway. Growth is stagnant, real wages are falling, asset prices and homes are decoupled entirely from wages, creating a sort of return to feudalism. All the generations that follow us will be permanent renters based on their wages, unless perhaps their parents pass on and they, inherit at 65, say. See, our parents bought in or a little bit older than me, they bought in a more sane market, a market that no longer exists. What is the function of all of this? The function is to eviscerate the wealth of the middle class and impoverish entirely the bottom 60%, 70%. Across the globe, we are doubling down on a system where market power is becoming more and more concentrated, markets more and more unbalanced. Each industry condenses to a few giant multinationals, sucking up profit and jobs away from local communities in this continual hunt for basement bargain prices, often sourced offshore and from questionable exploitative supply chains. And with their massive market dominance, these giant Goliath companies, what do we find happening to prices? Strangely, they are using their incredible market power, the cratering of markets, to price gouge, to price hike far beyond cost rises, making endemic a culture of fleecing a culture of extortion. So politicians, especially centre-left like Labour in the UK, hoping for business as usual or growth and hoping this is going to resolve the inherent dysfunction seems to be magical thinking at this point. Holding my coffee, I'm not quite sure I'm doing that. Why is this magical thinking? Not least because of all the tools removed from the state's coffers, the one that we retain is the brute and indiscriminating hammer of hiking interest rates to tame inflation. But this assumes that the cycling rounds of price rises are due to general overheating in the economy or too much cash, rather than something a little bit different, broken markets with not enough competition and too much power for a few Goliaths to extract rent, insane profit with no pushback. But this would require a little reflection and critiquing of the economy and the power amassing in too few hands. That would require a break from economic orthodoxy, the new end of history we were told, the kind we've been peddling since the late 80s. Best to stick our heads in the sand and let the big money from the big donors flood in, keep the billionaire press on the side. Sure, we're tying our hands behind our backs and we're ignoring the real struggles of ordinary people as the system sold to everybody as free and fair becomes quite the reverse. Society enhopped to the megalomaniacal thrusts of the powerful as they bend and mould the system to extort more in exponentially growing piles. A system curving in on itself, the seeds of its own destruction perhaps, but our political elites find it expedient to not think, not reflect, pretend away reality, and keep the powerful on side. Who are the people going to vote for? We are the slightly left option, and we give no meaningful solace. Is this still democracy? Perhaps there's a reason for vast swathes of us turning away, no longer voting. So we're in a position where we have ungodly, growing wealth and a population at breaking point. And no answers, not even questions in the media and from our political elites, our intellectual elites. The thing is, it's not so very tough a problem. We have the money. There is mountains of it. It's just no longer an increase and sort of decreasingly cycling in the economy. It's all pooling at one end. And then that power is being used to leverage more and more in infinite recursion. Another key plank is we have control over the currency. We can create money as a democratic state, with control over the sovereign money creation. We can create money and use it in reasonable amounts over time for productive investment to create the kind of flourishing economies we want in local communities. We can stimulate the kind of economy we want. We can moderate and cultivate and create a system that works for all of us. Okay, so we have perhaps a couple of seeds as to the route out of this morass. And if you want to hear any more on money and possible solutions to the economic malaise and the crashing of living standards, let me know and I'll do a light or a deep dive on it.